of the wedding hand. The second thing you ought to do is that you ought to get a good education. Get a good education. Not just a technical school training, but a good education. You are here not to just get a training, you are here to get an education. You are here to develop your mind, not just learn a trade or learn a skill. You deserve a good education. Do not use tech school as a dumping ground for the misfits of this state. There's nothing wrong with you that you cannot learn Shakespeare, Milton, and Schopenhauer. There's nothing wrong with you that you cannot learn philosophy. There's nothing wrong with you simply because you like to work with your hands, some of you, and want to develop a skill. That does not mean that you cannot work with your mind also. You are here to get a good education, and a part of that education is a skill. Don't sell yourself cheaply. Get a good education. Now, and getting a good education, do not drop out of high school and go to a GED program. How many of you attempt to do that? Okay, raise your hand. If you're tired of these teachers, you're tempted to drop out and go and get you a GED and say to hell with it. How many of you are tempted to do that? Raise your hand, tell the truth. I'm not going to tell your parents. Okay, now, you want to do that. Let me just give you a word about that, what you're doing. Now, listen very closely. In this country, high school is the first place outside of your home that you come in contact with authority. You have to learn to deal with authority in this country. Now, how many of you can't deal with authority? Raise your hand if you have this problem with folk telling you what to do. Can't deal with authority. Oh, that's interesting. Can't deal with authority. Now, those of you who said that you can't deal with authority, why is it that you want to work at minimum wage jobs for the rest of your life? What's wrong with you that you cannot go to the top? Why do you want to work minimum wage jobs for the rest of your life? Now, I asked a kid this a couple of years ago. He had come down to visit me, and I was taking him home that Sunday, and he was talking about what he was going to do, go to college and go to the service. He said, well, I don't think I'm going to go to the service, because the reason I'm not going to the service is because I can't follow orders. I said, you can't? He said, no. And I said to him, after we drove along a few more miles, I said, why do you want to spend the rest of your life on minimum wage jobs? He said, I don't. I said, well, you just told me that you didn't know how to take orders. He said, I did. I said, well, why do you want to spend the rest of your life at the bottom? He said, well, I don't want to be at the bottom. I said, but you just told me you wanted to be at the bottom. What did I say that told you that I wanted to be at the bottom? I said, well, you told me that you couldn't take orders. He said, what does that got to do with being at the bottom? I said, well, that's where the people who can't take orders are. How so? Listen very closely. Who do you think would be crazy enough to put you in a position to give orders if you can't take them? Who do you think would be crazy enough to put you in a position of authority if you can't even deal with authority? Who would be crazy enough to put you over other people and you don't even know how it is to be lorded over by somebody else? Who would be crazy enough to take a student who has never been to school and make him a principal of a school? Now, I know you think that some of your teachers and principals have never been to school, but that's what you think they have. If you want to move up, you have to prove that you know how to be on the bottom. And those people who cannot take orders are individuals who will never move up. Never move up. Now, back to the GED. Do you know what society thinks of a person who gets a GED? Now, it might not be true, but I'm telling you what society thinks of a person who gets a GED. Society thinks that a person who gets a GED is a person who cannot deal with authority, a person who cannot get along with other folk, a person who is a problem person and could not graduate from a normal school. And therefore, he went and got a GED because he was a problem. And whenever you get a GED, that's what the message you are sending is that I am a problem. Now, you may not be a problem. So if you're not a problem, then why send that message that you are a problem? And have every employer looking at you when you walk in the door with your GED and say, oh, here comes a problem. I don't want a problem on my job. That's some of the messages that we have about people who get GEDs. Now, if you get a GED and go on to college, that's a different story because you have a chance to make another statement. You have a chance to deal yourself another card educationally in college. But if you just get one and don't go on to college, you are telling people that I had a special problem and I couldn't deal with high school and those teachers and principal and the other kids there. I am really not quite together. Deal yourself that educational hand. The third thing is that if you want to really be successful in this country, you ought to deal yourself a clean hand when it comes to drugs and crime. Stay out of trouble with the law. Stay out of trouble with the law. If you get into trouble with the law, you're already limiting what you can be. You're already putting stumbling blocks in your way. Stay out of trouble with the law. Don't get involved in drugs. Now, this morning I talked to the students about drugs, and they said there's no need to talk to us about drugs. We are not using drugs. Save that for the guys and girls who are going to come this afternoon. They are the people who are interested in drugs, not us. That's what they told me. And I said, I don't believe so. They said, well, you give your drug speech to those guys in the afternoon. He said, you'll be at one guy. said, you'll even be able to tell. They'll be all slopped over. And they're all drugged up, man. Okay, now I always ask my friends, how many of you are drug addicts? Okay. All right. One drug addict. Okay, that's pretty good. All right. That's okay. Out of this big bunch, and we just have one drug addict, that's fine. Sir, do you want to be rehabilitated? Oh, he's off. Okay, how many of you have ever used drugs? Okay. Now, I shouldn't ask all these personal questions. How many of you know? How many of you know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that a person who wants to be successful has no business fooling with drugs? How many of you know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that a person who wants to be successful has no business fooling with drugs? Raise your hand. A person who wants to be successful has no business fooling with drugs. Raise your hand if you already know that. Okay, now, since you know that, then don't toy around with them. And don't let anybody give you drugs. Now, some people say, well, how do you say no? What is it about no that you don't understand? You know, just say it. If someone says to you, do you want to jump off of this building to your death? What would you say? You'd say it like this. No, I don't think so. You know, someone said, you want to jump off this building to your death? Oh, no. You crazy or something? So when someone said, in the middle of the classroom, someone says, let's go out and get high tonight. You said, hell no, you crazy or something? And the teacher says, what's going on here? Oh, you don't know what he asked me. What did he say to you? No, don't say that. Oh, I don't think, yeah. He told me, let's go out and get high tonight. That's what you do. Whenever someone asks you something, quietly, privately, get loud. Said no. Let everybody, you know, I was in the restaurant the other night, at one of these clubs, and it was nice and quiet and dark. and there was a couple sitting over in front of me, a man and a woman, and I heard her holler, "No!" I said, "What's going on over there?" And that's the way I want you to be. When someone offers you something that you know you shouldn't have, say it loudly and clearly. "No, I'm not interested." Say no to drugs. Say no to all of the behavior that is bad for you because you want to deal yourself a winning hand. Now, the last thing is stay away from crippling habits. And drugs is a crippling habit. And I want to talk to you about one other thing. I want to talk to you about something that I wish the grown people, the older folk weren't here, and I could talk to you about this without the kind of restrictions that they like to impose on. I want to talk to you about something that you're not into yet, but you see it on the television. And I really don't like to talk about this in big open settings because my students, we talk about this sometimes, and it's something that they vowed that they would not develop an interest in for another 5 years. Great. What I want to talk to you about sex. Oh, my God. Let's go. I got to go. Okay, now, I didn't say I was going to show movies. I just said Okay. Now, if you want to be successful, you say, well, what does sex have to do with success? Are you saying that being successful on a particular, well, anyway, what does success have to do with sex? Well, it has a lot to do with sex because all of you are sexual creatures. In some point in your life, next 5 or 6 years now, you're going to discover that there is something called sex. And that's, I said next 5 or 6 years. Okay. All right. Now, the way you handle your sexuality has a lot to do with whether you're going to be successful or not. Now, I have a friend that fell in love when he was 17 years old, 16 years old. He was so, and I'm not just talking about the physical act of sex, if there is such a thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the whole emotions involved in your sexual interest. How many of you are in love? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. In love. Okay. Now. All right. Raise your hand. If you know how much time you spend sometimes being in love, talking about love, making decisions based upon your love. How many of you are with the guy or the girl that you're going to be with for the rest of your life? Okay, all right, all 6 months of it. Okay, you're going to be with the one for the rest of your life. Well, the problem with being in love and romance in high school is this. You sometimes make short-term decisions that are going to have long-range consequences. One of the things you should avoid against, now some people don't like to talk about this, but I don't mind talking about it. You should avoid against getting yourself caught up sexually into a situation that is going to be impacting on your life for years and years and years to come. Now let me tell you something. This is to the young man. Now girls, when I say this, don't boo, because I'm going to say something similar about the men. I had and I want you to listen very closely. There's a girl in my class 2 years ago. She was we had this expression in Mississippi used to call fast. Girls that were just sassy and whatever. So this girl was every bit of that girl. One day, she was just acting up in my class, and I said to her name was Juanita. I won't go and laugh at her. Now, I don't want you to have her sue me. And I said, why do you hate your children? She said, what children? I said, your children. Why do you hate them? She said, I don't have any children. I said, did you ever intend to have any? She said, yeah, I guess. I said, well, why do you hate them? She said, well, I don't hate my children. I said, oh. She said, I thought you hated your children. She said, Mr. Jenkins, why do you think I'd hate my children? And I said, well, all the research shows that the greatest child's life is the education of his mother. And since you are so insistent upon being ignorant, I assume you hated your children. Now, she turned out to be a wonderful young lady, and she works at a restaurant, and every time I go to the restaurant, I'm afraid that she's going to put something in the food. And I say, honey, I love you. And she said, oh, yes, Mr. Jenkins. And now when she sets my plate out there, I'm always nervous. But she's learned a lot. Now, the point that I want to make to you is this. How many of you guys got dumb girlfriends? Okay, Lamont. All right. How many of you girls got dumb boyfriends? Okay. All right. Now, the worst thing you can do is get yourself tied down with a dumb person. I have a friend who has 2 children by a girl that he can't stand her now, and he calls her a dumb something. I forget the word. Okay. I just can't stand that dumb whatever he calls her. And I said, how dumb was she when you got those children by her? I didn't know it. I didn't know how dumb she was. Okay, now. Don't let your interest in sex let you forget how dumb people are, because you'll be stuck with them for 15, 17, 19 years until the child goes off to college or to prison, depending on how dumb she is. Be sexually responsible. Do not start families that you can't take care of. Do not get yourself tied down where you are being taken care of by your mother and the child is taken care of by you. You're not ready to be parents. Be what you are and prepare yourself to be what you ought to be. Don't handle your sex life irresponsibly. Don't put that in the cards against you. Give yourself a chance if you want to have a winning hand. Now, the last thing that I want you to have in this little game of life is stay alert. Stay alert. Always be ready to take advantage of opportunities that come your way. Always be ready to take advantage of opportunities that come your way. In life, you'll be given certain opportunities. Stay alert. Know when someone is offering you something worthwhile. Know when someone is offering you something that's detrimental to you. Stay alert. You are the person who is going to make the choices about your life. Life is a series of choices and consequences. You make the choice. You experience the consequences. Whatever you come out to be, whatever you turn out to be, whatever comes to be a part of your future will be based upon what you do today. You only have a short period of time. The window of opportunity is open for you now. It's going to close up pretty soon. You have to make your decisions now. You have to do what you need to do now in order to have the kind of life that you want to have. It is in your hand. It is your choice. Now, in closing, I can say to you quite honestly, quite seriously, quite boldly, quite unequivocally, that the cards are in your hand. Deep.